This is a mealworm, and this is my new pet gecko. I was scrolling on OfferUp the other day when I saw a post that said geckos for sale. So I messaged the seller and found out he's moving out of the state soon and he needs to sell the geckos. So I ended up taking a 45-minute drive over to his house. He showed me his collection of geckos, and after looking through, I found this guy. We discussed his eating habits and the schedule, and I promised that I would take great care of the gecko. So he even helped me put the tank in the back of the car so we can take it back to the Simply HQ. The guy also told me that if this video gets 10,000 likes, he'll give me a female gecko and a special incubator for free. So if you do enjoy this build, then please like the video. It'll really go a long way to helping us build a gecko army. I had to stop at the pet store to get some live food and supplies we'll need to take care of him. And once I got home, I placed the new enclosure on my table and gave the gecko some time to calm down. And after a couple minutes, he poked his head out from under this rock. He's a bit shy right now, so let me tell you about him while we wait. Leopard geckos come from the deserts of Asia, places like Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. But these geckos only come out during dusk and dawn, because the deserts in these places can reach up to 90 degrees during the day and below 60 degrees at night. So with these extreme conditions, it creates a unique ecosystem that I'm looking to recreate in today's video. The tank he's currently in doesn't have all that. He's only got one little cave and this cool log, so we're definitely gonna have to remodel his home. And just as I said that, he finally came out of his cave and started to crawl around the enclosure. At first, he was skeptical because this doesn't look anything like his old home, but he soon crawled up onto the log and just stared at me. This gecko kind of reminds me of a lizard and a snake combined because he has a snake-like head and these cool patterns. The owner also told me that he'd probably be hungry, so I opened up some of the live food, mealworms and black soldier fly. These are two staples in the gecko diet. The mealworms are good because they're packed with protein and fat, and they're essential for growth. And the black soldier fly are excellent for leopard gecko because they have a high calcium to phosphorus ratio and are easy and soft to digest. So I'm going to be placing these two into this plastic cup so when he's ready to eat, he can try it out for himself. I also got this heat mat from the store to keep him warm since he normally lived outside, so he'll be able to crawl in there and get warm tonight. I woke up the next day and found our food cup empty and our gecko nowhere to be found. He must have found his snack and is now sleeping in his hide. These geckos will sleep mostly during the daytime, so while he's sleeping, I'll set up this new light I got for him and attach the UVB bulb. A UVB bulb basically acts as the sun. It gives off rays to your gecko that they can't really get indoors. Those rays help his body make vitamin D, so while he could live without one of these bulbs, I think he's going to do way better with one. And I also started 3D printing a surprise for him when we remodel his home in the next couple days. I came back later in the day and he came out of his hide. This time he saw me and ran up the log and over to the glass. It looks like he's starting to get more friendly, but he won't let me pick him up. He would just run into his hide and wait for me to put the top back on. So I texted the old owner to ask about his behavior, and he told me that this gecko would never let him pick him up and he would only interact when he had food. So I guess he's still hungry after his snack last night. So I grabbed my tongs and lowered a mealworm into the enclosure. At first, our gecko just stared at it. And then he struck. Honestly, it kind of shocked me. So I lowered another worm in to see if he would do it again. And it seems like we're unlocking his hunting skills. Every time we would lower a mealworm into different areas of the tank, he would attack the tongs when he saw the moving insect. But I had to stop feeding him the worms because mealworms need to be gut loaded. Gut loading involves feeding the mealworms nutritious food before feeding the mealworms to the reptile. So I picked up these jelly shots that you can feed your mealworms so they get the proper nutrients necessary. So I dropped in some mealworms into the container. The mealworms started to go to town on the jelly, filling up their bodies with the vitamins the gecko needs to get healthy. Right now, our gecko looks kinda skinny. Leopard geckos store excess fat and nutrients in their tails as an emergency energy reserve. A healthy, plump tail indicates a gecko is well fed, while a thin, bony tail can be a warning sign of illness, stress, or poor nutrition. So we need to pack on some food to get him back to the right size. After an hour, I took the worms out of the cup. He devoured all the worms in like 10 minutes, and then decided it was time to take a nap and crawled back into his hide.
I came back to the tank, and our gecko is still sleeping under his hide. He must have had a good dinner. So while he's sleeping, let's plan his new enclosure. Leopard geckos need different places to hide in order to feel safe, but also to regulate their temperature. The 3 different hides a leopard gecko needs is a cool, a warm, and a humid. Right now he's in a 20-gallon tank and only has a warm hide, so personally, I think it's too small. So I grabbed an empty 40-gallon breeder and threw it onto our custom stand. In here, we will build a new ecosystem with all the right conditions for our gecko to thrive. My plan is to build the warm side on the right with the cooler side on the left. I'm planning on building a rock cave on the right side with a pool in the back and 2 custom DIY hides on the left side. It's like we're going to be building a little city for our new gecko. Meanwhile, I went back to check on the gecko and he's still hiding under the rock. So I did some research and found out if you overfeed a gecko and they don't have the right conditions, they will get sick. Leopard geckos need heat to help with their digestive tract, and as cold-blooded reptiles, they rely on external heat sources to raise their body temperature. So I think since the last owner had him outside, where it's way hotter than my house, he's probably reacting to the cooler temperature, which is slowing him down and making him lethargic. So I drove over to the store and found this heat bulb that will raise the temperature in his enclosure. And when I got back, I unscrewed the UVB bulb and screwed in the heat lamp. Right now the heat is way more important because the UVB bulb isn't even hitting him under the rock. I also got a thermometer to help track the temperature because if we put the heat lamp too low, it will burn our gecko's skin. But if it's too high, it won't work properly. So I gave the heat lamp some time to heat up his enclosure. And when I went back to check on the gecko, I saw he came out for the first time in almost 30 hours. He walked over to a small water dish to get a drink, and it seemed like the heat was helping him become more energetic, but we need to be careful with extra heat, which can dehydrate him quicker. So I decided to add in the shallow water dish to provide a place for him to cool off and get a drink. And I know, don't worry, tomorrow we start building his new home. I came back the next day and found our gecko sleeping on the log. He looked so peaceful sleeping there. I bet he's dreaming of his new home, or maybe even a girlfriend. So I decided to start with the substrate in the new tank for a realistic and bioactive enclosure. A 70-30 mix of organic topsoil and play sand is a popular but effective choice because it allows for natural burrowing and behaviors. So I grabbed some organic topsoil in a bucket and added in some play sand. I don't think that's right. Hold up, let me try again. Now that we have a layered mix of dirt on the bottom and sand on the top, we're gonna need to shake it up. So I grabbed my drill and started to mix it. But since this enclosure is so big, we'll need 2 buckets to fill it up. I want to create a 3 to 4 inch soil bed to allow to build natural hides and allow him to burrow underground. But first, we have these annoying safety locks on the front and back from the last owner that they put for their pet snake. If you want to see me keep a snake, we'll need to hit 1 million subscribers because that's my biggest fear in the world, but I'll overcome it for you guys. Now that our tank is ready for the build, let's start with our first hide. I grabbed an old terracotta pot because I wanted to create a cave-like structure, but I think we'll need to do some customization first. I ended up grabbing a hammer and my safety glasses and decided to give a quick swing at it, and it exploded. So I grabbed some of the best pieces and took them back to build the cave. Our terracotta pot will be our first cool one. I decided to dig the pot into the soil to create a place to burrow and hide. Leopard geckos need hides so they feel safe and calm. Now that we've finished the cave, it's time to move over to the other side and build our first hot hide. I grabbed some pink slate rock to build a rock cave, and we're gonna be putting a window so we can see in. But after some playing around with some different pieces and some super glue, I binded our rocks together and came out with this. I'm also gonna be adding in these 3 plant holders for our future plants. Now that we have a warm hide and a cool hide, we have to build a humid one. A humid hide is a special little cave that's supposed to stay damp. It helps the leopard gecko stay hydrated and makes it easier for them to shed their skin without getting stuck. So I grabbed this fake rock cave and decided to add some moss on the inside with some super glue. This hide will be very important for our gecko's health. And once I placed the moss cave into our enclosure, I heard our 3D printer finish a surprise. When I walked over to our 3D printer, I found our gecko box inside. This 3D printed box will allow us to create an underground hide on the cool side, but right now we have a problem. We can only see in from this little hole. So I'm gonna be using my Dremel to cut a window into the side of our 3D printed box. But first, let's grab our safety glasses in case anything breaks off. So I started to cut the window in our box, and I was pretty surprised how easy this Dremel cut through the heavy duty plastic we use in the 3D printer. But about halfway through using the Dremel, it snapped right off. Good thing it didn't hit one of my fish tanks, or we would have had a huge problem. So I put on a new wheel and finished cutting out the window, and added in a clear acrylic piece to make sure we could see through. And with the window up against the glass, we'll be able to see him crawl in and out and sleep underground. Once I finished placing the box, I went to the store to pick up the final materials so we can finish his enclosure in the next couple days. I ended up picking a lid for the enclosure so our gecko doesn't get out. Plus I got some plants to fill up the pots. I ended up getting 2 clean air plants. These are effective at removing toxins from the air, so they'll help keep me and the gecko safe. I also got this cool banana croton that adds a nice color pop to our enclosure. Now all we need to do is add our work lights to the top of the enclosure to provide heat and UVB to our gecko. But we have a problem. The height of our lights is way too low for the gecko, and if we leave the heat lamp on the top, we could burn the gecko's skin, or even worse, kill it. So I went to the Simply workshop to sketch a design I think would work best and gave it to the builders at the Simply HQ. And after a couple cuts and screws, we completed the DIY custom light rack. They even added a swivel on the middle piece so we can adjust the height of our clip lights. I know, it's pretty cool. So I attached our lights to the correct height and turned them on. We have our UVB bulb on the left side and our heat lamp on the right. And in the next 24 hours, we will add our gecko into his new and improved home. I went to check on our gecko and found a cool surprise. He's starting to shed his skin. When a leopard gecko is shedding, its skin turns pale and kind of cloudy. It's always best to let the gecko shed on its own by rubbing against rocks and hides to peel its skin off. But the cool thing with leopard geckos is that they will eat their shed skin because it gives them some nutrients back from their old skin. Plus it helps keep their home clean, and it will hide the evidence from predators in the wild. I ended up adding in 2 water dishes, 1 cup for him to drink from, and a shallow pool in the back for him to moist his skin. I also used a spray bottle to dampen our moss so it stays moist and humid. And then I added in the thermometer to make sure our heat lamp is giving the correct heat. Once everything was complete, I decided to grab the gecko out of his old tank and put him into this cool moving container to make him feel safe, and it's time to add him into the new enclosure. So I grabbed him out of the box and dropped him into his new home. He just stood there, kinda confused. First, he checked out the plant, since this is probably the first real plant he's ever seen in his life. He then climbed over the moss cave to go check out the pool. At first, he just took a drink, but then he decided to jump in. The shallow water dish is gonna help our gecko stay hydrated, because when they drink or soak in it, it's gonna keep the skin soft, so it peels off smoothly for him. After he was done with the pool, he decided to climb up and down his rock cave, and it seems like he's enjoying his new setup, so I'm gonna keep a close eye on him to see if we can catch him shedding. A couple hours later, I came by the tank and found him in the terracotta pot, halfway through his shed. It's pretty crazy I caught him, because it only takes geckos 15 minutes to shed completely, so I did my best to set up the shot and captured this. This is truly one of the coolest things I've ever experienced with my own eyes. And once he ripped the final piece of skin from his tail, he is now fully transformed into his new self. I'm gonna leave him now to rest, since most geckos will sleep once they finish their shed. I came back to our tank, and our gecko seems like he's loving his new home. I want this enclosure to feel as close to nature as possible, so he'll be hunting all the rest of his food in this video. A leopard gecko has this cool hunting trick. To help find food, they'll flick their tongue into the air to pick up airborne scents. Then the tongue draws these scents back into their mouth to a sensory organ. This organ helps them track food, and they can even use it to recognize things like the scents of their owner. Anyways, he made his way around the tank until he climbed up onto the cave and found the surprise I left for him. I decided to drop some mealworms into his feeding cup, and he finished all the worms in about 3 to 4 minutes. But he's eating so many of these mealworms that I'm gonna have to learn how to make them before I go broke. After he was done eating, he crawled back into his warm hide to take a nap, and when he wakes up, I have a surprise for him. It's been a week since we rescued this gecko, and he's starting to get more comfortable with me. When we first got him, he wouldn't even let you touch him, but now he's starting to warm up to me. I don't know if it's because I'm the guy who feeds him, or if he's actually starting to realize that I'm here to help. But it's time to add in the next prey to his ecosystem, crickets. These are his favorite. Live crickets are great for leopard geckos because they will help your geckos stay active and use their hunting instincts. Plus, fresh live crickets are full of nutrients that are going to help the gecko grow strong and healthy. So I grabbed a box of large crickets that you can actually place into the tank itself. The crickets will slowly exit out of the box. But there's way too many crickets in here for me to feed them all at once. So I bought this cricket box that can hold all of our crickets in between feedings. It's filled with these 2 food and water dishes and these 2 tubes to make feeding easy. So I ended up dumping our crickets into the container and sealed it up. These guys look like a perfect snack for our gecko to help him gain some real size. So I dropped in our feeding tube filled with crickets and special powder into the enclosure, and our crickets started to run out. At first the gecko didn't really notice the crickets until he spotted one running into the terracotta pot. He ran over and trapped him in there and got his first one, and now with 2 crickets left, he started to go on the hunt. That's when he located the next one behind this rock and darted over to catch him, but he ended up missing him and knocked it out. So now that he's located 2 of the 3 crickets, he can still sense there's one more. And that's when he spotted him in the corner plant and started to plan his attack. Once the cricket ran out of the pot, he struck and hit. But when I went back to look for the one he knocked out, it was gone. So I guess I'll have a surprise later. Anyways, it seems like our gecko is loving the new ecosystem, but I need your help with one last thing. I put up a community tab post where my subscribers can vote on his name, so go vote before it's too late. And remember, if this video gets 10,000 likes, we're gonna be getting him a girlfriend.